Something amazing happened last week. We celebrated your birthday. And I took this great picture of you, which I feel fairly confident I can insert now. Let's see if it works. So we celebrated your birthday.
Yeah.
And I have a birthday this summer too.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about the birthday of the church this past Sunday.
Yeah.
Pentecost.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to hear your best birthday ever.
Ooh. My best birthday ever. So the one that like my brain just falls back to is I had a birthday party that was supposed to be a surprise.
Yeah.
This had to be like 4th or 5th grade. And one of the moms called our home asking for my mom. And I was like, oh, she's not here.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, oh, okay. Well, I was just letting you know that we won't be at the birthday party.
Oh, crushing.
And I was like, what? So she ruined it, but...
So she ruined it. Super cash.
But I didn't let that ruin the jam for me, so I did a reverse.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew it was happening, and it was at my house. We have a pool, and my bedroom is on the 2nd floor above. And I opened up the window, and I surprised everyone at my birthday party. I was like, "What's up, everybody?"
That's amazing.
It was like a double surprise. And they were like, surprise?
And you're like, yeah. I love it. That's a good birthday.
It was a good birthday.
How old were you?
How old you are in 4th and 5th grade?
Okay, so like maybe like 9, 10?
9. Yeah, somewhere in there.
Somewhere,
probably.
okay. I like how we said it backwards. I said 9 and 10, and you said 10 and 9.
I actually did the math of this the other day because I realized, so my birthday is June 1st, which means it was often, I think maybe once I was actually still in school, but it's often just right at the end of school, which means I was the same age the whole year, the whole school year. Whereas like some kids, you have the same thing. Since your summer birthday, some kids, if their birthday is somewhere in the middle of the school year, they're one age at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So every school year, I was one age in every grade. I wasn't 2 ages in any grade.
Okay.
So I did the math backwards to figure out what age I was in each grade.
Was there
Once I realized this. No.
Okay.
So as a senior, I was 17. As a junior, I was 16. As a sophomore, I was 15.
Keep
so
going.
I went backwards.
Okay.
And I could go all the way backward. I'm not going to. Now I'm going to stop.
I don't even know what to do with my face right now. First of all, I don't know why that happened. And second, you said so many numbers.
I know.
It's like you're trying to sabotage me.
The numbers just made your brain...
Quit. She retired. Yes.
So what about you? What's your favorite birthday?
Because I knew I was going to ask this question, I really should have had a better answer.
Yeah.
But the one that comes to mind is when I think I was like 8. And my mom planned, I don't think the party was a surprise, but maybe it was. Mm-hmm. I don't totally remember a lot about the party, except for the fact that it was a dress-up party. And all of my friends that came brought like a bag that they weren't supposed to know what was in it. And so then we all opened the bags and we all had like surprise dress-up clothes. And then we had like a tea party. And it was super fun.
That's cool.
It was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I am not a surprise party person.
You don't like surprises?
You will never surprise me.
Challenge accepted.
I'm just saying, somehow, I always end up finding out. So, like, at some point in high school, maybe it was as a senior, I'm not sure, my mom had a surprise party for me. I really don't remember when it was. I just know that my friend Ashley had a car. Anyway, because we were supposed to go shopping, but like, I knew. The minute Ashley was like, hey, let's go shopping this day, I was like, I know what's happening here. And then it was like at the pool in my neighborhood. And so to get out of my neighborhood, you drive past the pool, and I saw balloons, which could have been for anybody, but I knew. Mm-hmm. I knew.
Yeah.
I often ruin gifts. Like Steven will get me a present, and I will like be able to guess what it is.
Yeah. I think you and Hannah share this characteristic.
I can't help it. I don't know why I'm like this, but
you just are.
I'm hard to surprise.
Can I share now another surprise birthday party story?
Yes, please.
It's how Hannah and I's relationship began.
Okay.
When she was turning 16, we had met at a shared summer mission trip.
Okay. This is the churchiest story. Please continue.
Yep. And so me and another friend drove to her house for her surprise birthday party. Mm-hmm. It was when she was turning 16, so they surprised, and then like we were like the secondary surprise. Mm-hmm. And we've been dating ever since, and now we're married and have 2 kids and 2 dogs.
That's amazing.
It's the beginning point.
A surprise party.
A surprise 16th birthday party.
That's a big deal. This is Sweet 16. I did just think of a time someone surprised me, but it wasn't for my birthday. When I was in high school, I was in it was a freshman. I was in orchestra, mm-hmm. and I didn't know any. I mean, anyway, freshman. At some point, we were having I had a friend over, but we were both in orchestra, and the seniors came to my house early in the morning, and with my parents' permission, and kidnapped me and my friend that was a freshman in orchestra as well. And there was a full freshman breakfast. They took us to some neighborhood clubhouse. We met all the other freshmen, and it was sort of like hazing, but it was nice. Mm-hmm. They were not mean to us. I do remember them drawing a fish on my head because we were freshman fishies, you know what I mean? But they weren't mean about it. And we were allowed to get dressed. They didn't take us in our pajamas. I think some of the boys were brought in their pajamas.
The more you describe this and tell me it wasn't mean and not hazing, the less I'm being convinced of it.
It really, it's fair. It sounds bad. And maybe it was. It didn't feel bad. It was oh, this is fun. And then we were assigned a sibling. I don't know. I guess I had a big sister maybe. Mm-hmm. And they put goodies in my instrument locker, and it was nice. Yeah, it was one of the few times in my life I did not
scary for a moment, great for.
It was just very surprising. It was why are there people?
What is happening?
Yeah. Anyway, you know what else was surprising? Pentecost. Disciples very surprised. It was really funny on Sunday because we did the surprise streamers, which we did last year, but this year we did a little bit more. We amped it up a little bit more. Because now they were all over the congregation. I had little people I roped in. Yeah. But it was really funny to watch how scared people were. Because I'm a bad person, and I'm sorry. But people weren't expecting the streamers. Yeah. And so there was one kid even who was that sort of scared me. And I was that feels on brand for this scripture. Yeah. It's awesome and a good thing. And also, it was probably a little scary. Yeah. So, yeah. This is the twin episode to our Ascension Sunday, Pentecost Sunday. So let's get into it. I'm Becca. I'm the pastor of family ministries at Katy First.
I'm Mark. I'm the senior pastor at Katy First.
And welcome to the Katy First Family Podcast, where we offer ideas, inspiration, and encouragement to help you and your family grow as joyful disciples of Jesus Christ. And this week we are talking about Pentecost. And from Babel to Pentecost and beyond. Yeah. You keep looking over here because I didn't give you a paper.
Well, you have the hymnal.
Yeah, do you want it?
No, I just don't know why you have a hymnal.
Do you want me to tell you?
No, keep it a surprise.
My God. We are so silly. I am a bad employee and did not realize, even though I get all of the emails and I'm on the spreadsheet and everything else, didn't know you were talking about Babel until I showed up for worship on Sunday. Okay. I'm really sorry. Please take it as a token of my trust that I was whatever he wants to do is great. I have no notes.
He's doing what?
I don't know. But I genuinely was stoked and excited. I'd already prepped out what I was going to say for my children's message. And it then worked perfectly. And I was so excited because I love, we talked last week about pairings. Okay.
Ooh.
That was a fun moment.
Ooh, that was.
Boop, boop. What a surprise.
Ooh, the lights.
Okay. We talked about iconic pairs. And I feel like Babel and Pentecost are such good ones. And I'm not just saying that because you talked about it. Genuinely, I think when we read the story of Babel, what you talked about it. Okay, well, let's talk about what the story of Babel is.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell the story and I'll stop talking a minute.
Okay, so it's Genesis 11. We're really early in the Bible here. I'd said in the sermon, scholars call this like a prehistory thing.
Yeah.
So old story. And they tell us that the people have gathered together under one language. They have the same words, and they're wanting to create a big city so they're not scattered all over the world.
Yeah.
And they build this tower that is said to go up into the heavens. And then God notices what's happening, looks down at the tower, and then says, we need to go down and confuse their language and put a stop to all this.
I did a little scattering hand motion.
So God goes down, confuses the language of all the people, scatters them all across the earth. And this, I said this in the sermon, this is like an etiology. It's a story that tells us why the world is the way it is. Why are there languages? Oh, well, there's a story about this Tower of Babel, and this is where God created all the languages of the world and then scattered people all over the world. But there's more to it than just that, and we kind of connected the dots then of not just a story that explains why the world is, but part of the larger story of what God is doing in the world and what God wants for the world, and how in many ways Pentecost helps us see that even more so because of what God does at Pentecost through the many languages that the disciples also speak.
I mean, I love the way that you talked about how some things we see as curses in Scripture are really maybe not intended to be that way.
Yeah.
And I think it was last week that you talked about how the world is upside down. Maybe it wasn't last week, but you've said that phrase before. Uh-huh. And so sometimes because of that, we misunderstand things that are supposed to be gifts. We see them as curses. Mm-hmm. And so you talked about how being different or diverse and scattered isn't bad, but in fact, it's a blessing. Mm-hmm. And that we see that fully in Pentecost, which is all of the things that you just said. But what I wanted to point out about that is that when you were talking about how you have all these different languages and then suddenly, it would have been just as, I say this, I don't know. It theoretically could have been just as easy for God to be like, now we all speak the same language.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And what you said was instead, and I think this is true, instead God says, look, I see you where you're at. I speak your language. Mm-hmm. And I know where you are. I know and I care. Mm-hmm. And I think that one of the things that's important when we do any kind of scripture study is when we're asking why is God doing this? Mm-hmm. It often is to point out it's either to bless or to show how something is a blessing. Mm-hmm. But I also thought, well, it's not entirely true. Mm-hmm. I do think that there is some kind of common language that people are speaking there. Mm-hmm. I think, have I told you my Jesus squirrel joke?
No, I don't think so.
It's actually one of the rules in youth group. I will say, no Jesus squirrel answers. Okay, so here's how the joke goes. It's a first grade Sunday school class. And you are looking at me like crazy.
I hope I laugh.
Well, you have control over it. Okay, there's a first grade Sunday school class. And the first grade Sunday school teacher says, what is furry and likes acorns? And this little boy raises his hand immediately and says, well, I want to say squirrel, but we're in Sunday school, so I'm going to say Jesus. It's a little funny. So it's not that funny, but it's a little funny. And I use this stupid joke to point out that, like, often we just give like a very, what we call a Jesus squirrel answer, right? Where it's not a thoughtful answer. It's not even an honest answer. It's the answer you think you're supposed to give because you're at church. Yeah. And so I think it could sound like saying, well, you know, we actually all do speak the language, one language, and that language is love or grace or whatever. Yeah. And that could feel like a very pat answer. Yeah. But it's kind of like we talked about last week, that there's actually a lot of nuance. There's this simplified, we talked about how like Jesus is Lord, and that's a very simplified thing, but for a really grandiose idea. Saying that God speaks our language, I think, is maybe just a little off. I think really we all speak the language of God if it's in us somewhere. Planted by God in us. And Pentecost just calls that out.
Yeah. I'd say that's more true to, like, you know, Jeremiah, who says, I'll write my law upon their hearts. Yeah. You know? So I think that's probably more accurate and a better way of saying it, for sure.
I really liked how you said it, to be clear.
Okay.
Was I unclear in that?
No. Okay, good. No. I was just adding to what, that's what my brain was already thinking about that.
I also, you talked about how there's this beautiful mosaic of God's world and how Pentecost pushes us out into that world to be a part of that. Yeah. And that we are invited, you used a beautiful John Wesley quote, that we are invited to be even more, to work in more vile and holy places. So say more about like that John Wesley quote, consented to be more vile.
Yeah. I mean, the broad kind of context around it is that Wesley chose to go out into the fields and preach. Yeah. And kind of in 17th century England, he preached from the pulpit. He didn't preach somewhere outside of the church. And so to go into the field, even though for us today this sort of sounds kind of like, oh, not a big deal. That was a big deal. And I reference this, and I'm pretty sure I'm not lying. Did you learn this too? That he once gave a sermon on top of his father's tombstone, right?
In fact, when we took the confirmation class up to Lovely Lane, they have like a museum in their basement, and there was not a photograph, obviously, it's like 17 something, but like a painting of it.
Yeah. And the reason for that is because he can get elevated, stand up, people can see him, or like in a field, you go stand next to a tree. Why? Because it's a focal point. So anyway, that's the context of that particular quote, because as people pushed back on him, like, you shouldn't be doing this. Yeah. Preaching belongs in the church. Yeah. He said, well, I've consented to be more vile. And it may even be, I don't know if the world is my parish goes along with this particular quote too, of the sense of like.
It does in spirit, if not in the exact paragraph.
Yeah. Like Wesley felt this need to bring faith. Not just come to us, but let us go to you, to be a faith that is sent, a faith that wants to meet people where they're at. Yeah. And of course, that's the spirit of Pentecost, is the church didn't sit in Jerusalem and wait for the world to come to them. The church goes and is sent into the world. And then, to be able to do that, this Pentecost moment is this sort of empowering moment to go speak these languages of the world. Yeah. To go meet people where they're at. Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, the John Wesley, the story that if I'm remembering correctly, when he preaches on his father's grave, it's not like he just randomly picked it. He had been really harassed about preaching out in the fields and chased out of public areas. And he's like, this plot where my father is you can't, this is mine. It's out in the world, but you can't keep me from it. They even told us a story about how, like, not just John Wesley, but Methodist preachers in general in the beginning would be preaching somewhere, and like people would run their like cattle through the group, like trying to disperse the congregation that was listening. Yeah. Whatever they could, because this was just not how it's supposed to be. And I think that's like, I think there's something so beautiful about God in that, is this idea of like, we think that perfection or beauty looks like uniformity or clarity, or maybe total comprehension is a word, or organization, right? When actually God is telling us there's something really beautiful and important about diversity and a little bit of chaos and mystery and this sort of mess, like that there's actually something really beautiful, and that we find God uniquely in the lack of sameness, in the lack of perfect, there's harmony. It's just that sometimes harmony is even kind of chaotic. There's like a lot of things happening, and like a really good choir, there's a lot of different voices that you can't always see how they go together at first. Yeah. And somehow they make a really beautiful masterpiece. Yeah. And only the conductor can keep that together. Yeah. I think it's pretty. Yeah. Well, you also kind of finished your sermon, which is hilarious, by the way, that you preach this amazing sermon, and then you're like, in close, here are my 3 bullet points, because you just had to make sure you were like a good Methodist pastor. Well,
yes. I didn't want the sermon to just be, I wanted there to be some sort of practicality to
not
this
just
idea.
Info.
Yeah, here's not just some info like, hey, we should all go be doing this thing. Like, how do we actually live that?
Yeah, I love that. So you talked about humble attentiveness. Mm-hmm. So not that you think so little of yourself, but that you think rightly of yourself and also of others, and you're paying attention. Yes. And then you talked about how we don't compare, but we celebrate. Yeah. And then finally, I'm not sure I got this last one right, because this is what I wrote. So then you fix it, okay? Say, share, so that it might be heard. Oh, say it and share it so that it might be heard. That actually did make sense.
Yeah. Say it so they hear it, or share it so they would hear it.
Yeah.
Which, it's comes in a kind of one of those to progress. But yeah, I talked about humility. Again, I said this in the sermon of like Paul in Philippians, where it's not a devaluing of yourself. Look not only to your own interest, but also to the interest of the other. And so, don't devalue who you are and your culture and what makes you you. Yeah. But a humble attentiveness is that you're willing to step into other spaces, cultures, languages, environments, not to lose yourself, just to lift up something and to be humble and paying attention to what is happening here. Yeah. What is the cry? What is the reason that this space is offering something to the world? What is the reason that this is adding meaning to you? There's a whole lot of things. And just sitting, and then as you do that, to not have to just compare, is this better than what I'm doing? Yeah. Is this more right and is mine more wrong? Just celebrate it, because going back, this isn't about the one right thing. It's about the diversity of God's fullness. Yep. And so we can celebrate it. And so it doesn't have to devalue your experience in your world and as you know things in your faith. It can be a complementing thing that helps us see what God is doing, what the Spirit might be doing. Yeah, I love that. I think when we talk about it with parenting, there's some... Okay, so like a non-theological overlap that I think then has some theological implications. First of all, I read somewhere recently that like kids are kids' age, somewhere between 2 and like 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. They need 8 seconds to process a request or information. Mm-hmm. So if I say, Sammy, go put your shoes on, and he doesn't move, and I go, Sammy, shoes, I'm just repeating. I'm just starting the process over. Or I go, Sammy, go get your shoes, and then go get your, I'm just making, he can't hear it. Mm-hmm. He can't hear it. He can't process it. He can't get it done. So, I think that, and I think we do this a lot in other ways too with our kids. So we need them to do something. We want them to understand something, learning how to speak in a way that is not just age developmentally appropriate, but also particular to our kid. Yeah. And I just have the one kid, so I know how to speak Sammy. Yeah. But I would assume that you have learned and are learning how to speak both Miley and Phoebe, right? Or even in the youth group, I know which students I can speak to this way. Mm-hmm. And there are other students, if I said the exact same thing, it's a whole different reaction. Yeah. And so received. You have to learn how to speak to people. That's just a way to exist in the world. Right. But
the theological implications there is that as we're raising kids and we want them to hear, because remember, our goal is not to make them disciples, but to introduce them to God. And God makes disciples, right? So we want to introducing them to God, introducing them to Jesus, to the love of God. So I think then we have to speak to them in a way that makes sense for them, but all the time, in little ways. Do you know what I mean? In the weird, my kid really likes to be outside, a lot, a whole lot. So little things about I had so much fun outside with you today. Isn't God's world so beautiful? I mean, just that. Yeah. Or didn't God make a pretty day for us? Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah. One of the things we have talked about doing is intentionally coming up with questions that families can ask. I'm trying to come up with a really good question to help celebrate the diversity that's in God's world. I'm telling you this slowly so you can think about it as well. 8
seconds to process it.
That's right. One of the questions I had was what did you see that you didn't expect today? Right? What was something that surprised you today? I think that could be a good question. Yeah. You have any thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm just as simple as what was different. However you phrase that, it's kind of rephrasing. What was different and what's cool about that? And then just not having to not having to turn around and say, was that better or worse than but just kind of a call to what's the different thing that you're seeing and trying to find what was neat about that. Or cool about that.
Yeah. I think it's good.
Simple.
No, I think it's really good though.
Yeah.
I think that the more that we, your wife the other day, actually, I was asking her for advice. Dr. Hannah Kimbrough. She's quite wise.
She is.
And she talked about how for our kids' well-being, the best indicator for that is our own mental and emotional well-being. So for us to practice these things for ourselves in front of our kids is a really helpful way to make sure that it just becomes a part of who they are. They're celebrating the beautiful diversity of God and speaking the language of other people because they see their parents, family, friends doing that.
Yeah.
It's always the long game.
Yeah. If there's older kids, I'll give a movie recommendation.
Yes.
Here's another route. I actually watched this movie this weekend. It's called Arrival. Have you seen Arrival? It's
Is
with
that
Amy
the one?
Adams.
Yes, with the aliens.
With the aliens that arrive.
That's a great movie.
It's a great movie.
But you definitely need to be...
I don't want to spoil the movie. Yeah, it's not
It's not scary.
It's not scary.
It feels suspenseful, maybe.
It's suspenseful.
But nothing drastic happens.
Yeah. I don't even think there's bad language in it. But don't hold me on that.
It would be very moderate. But I'd probably still be in high school or you're not going to get it.
But what I love about that movie is they're trying to figure out how to communicate with these aliens.
Yep.
And so Amy Adams' character is this linguistic expert, and she's kind of through her character you learn a lot about why our words matter.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of a fascinating thing that echoes a lot of this.
That's good.
But there's this one particular scene where they're worried because another country has been because there's 12 alien ships that have landed.
They're in different places in the world.
And all these countries are trying to figure out how to communicate.
Yeah.
Are they good, bad? Is this...
Yeah.
So they're all kind of on edge trying to figure out how to talk. And she asks how another country has been communicating with them. And he says, they've been teaching them chess. And she goes, oh, no.
Yeah.
Because she goes, if that's the language... then everything is couched in winner, loser, and it's all in competition. So therefore, our communication will always be couched in winning, losing, and competition. And it reminded me, not just in literal languages, but just in sort of the frameworks and things, these things that shape us.
Yeah.
Like that, if our framework is built on how we communicate, and our communication is built on competition. Then everything is a competition, and everybody's winners and losers, and we need a different paradigm to see how things work. So if you have older kids, I think it'd be a really good movie to watch and then kind of talk about like
for sure.
What did because there's so much. It's a good movie.
It is a really good movie.
It's fascinating too.
It's one of those movies that like you could definitely watch over and over again, but the first time you see it is special.
Yes, it is. And I don't want to ruin it.
No, don't do it.
I won't say any more.
That's it. Well, today is our very last normal podcast for the summer.
Normal podcast.
Whatever that means for us. I'm not sure what our normal is. But yeah, this was really good. It was beautiful. So starting next week, we're starting our summer edition of podcasts.
Yeah.
So far, we have a few good questions.
Yeah.
And they are...
Got some bangers.
Yeah, they are not... I really thought somebody was going to be like, explain baptism or something really easy like that. No, false. They are all intense.
But if you want that question, explain baptism, we will address that question.
We'd be so happy to answer that question. We are ready.
We will take all of them. There are no bad questions, so...
Just goofy ones.
Goofy ones. We'll take goofy ones.
I love goofy ones. I feel like we were made for a time such as that.
Ask a question about the Goofy movie, because...
I love the Goofy movie.
You're loving the Goofy movie.
I hope that happens. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you have found some inspiration and encouragement for yourself and your family. If you'd like to get our weekly podcast delivered directly to you, you can subscribe or follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or follow us on YouTube. For more information about Katy First and upcoming events for your family, visit our website at katyfirst.org. Most importantly, we want you to know this, that in the middle of your ordinary, messy life, whatever that looks like for you in this moment, you are not alone, you are doing a good job, and you are so loved.
And we hope you'll join us on Sunday. It's Trinity Sunday. We're looking at John's text. So join us on Sunday. Until then, have a great week.